Hi everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Business Tips for Trading Across Borders, which is a US partner activity in collaboration with the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. Today we are here to talk about the future of e-commerce, and we have one of Sri Lanka's leading e-commerce players with us to discuss this topic. We have the pleasure of having Anishka De Zylva, who is the Head of Corporate Affairs and ESG at Daraz. Welcome, Anisha, to the show.
Thank you so much, Shiran. Pleasure to be here.
We've really seen the growth of e-commerce in the post-pandemic period, even during the pandemic. Can it really grow to much further and become a bigger percentage of the pie of retail?
Yes, I think the short answer is yes. We're going to see e-commerce become a larger share of retail in Sri Lanka. And there are a couple of reasons for that, and I'll perhaps briefly describe four of them. One is Sri Lanka's internet and smartphone penetration is growing, and with that people are more exposed to platforms like Daraz, like WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and with that exposure and the ease of use of those platforms, we're going to see more people adopting technology to connect with consumers across the country. And that brings me to my third reason, which is the prevalence of e-commerce, not only in urban areas, but rural areas as well. And the more we see the adoption of smartphones and internet penetration, we're going to see this industry grow further across Sri Lanka. The fourth and final reason is definitely low barriers to entry. That's also going to be one of the key factors that will increase the share of e-commerce when it comes to retail. As long as you have a viable product that can be easily transported to a consumer, it's likely that more people will adopt e-commerce to increase their user base or their customer base and diversify their revenue channels.
Sure. With this growth, and of course in the backdrop of what's going on in Sri Lanka's economy, do you think e-commerce can support the economic recovery?
Oh, definitely. And there are a number of reasons for that, but I think the one that's most exciting is its export potential. There's enormous export potential when it comes to e-commerce. And with the growth of the industry and the development of new brands and new products in Sri Lanka, we're going to see companies looking to markets outside of Sri Lanka, which will then grow the export side of e-commerce. And then, of course, another way in which it will help economic recovery is the employment opportunities and the job opportunities that e-commerce brings, particularly for youth and women. So that's going to hopefully reduce unemployment, increase female labor force participation. And with e-commerce, we're also seeing the growth of complementary industries like logistics and packaging. So with that, also you're going to see more and more complementary industries growing and coming up, even in the branding and the marketing space, as more people build brands.
And do you see any barriers really to meet this potential and support the economic recovery?
I could think of a couple, and two actually come to mind, which is one is the access and know-how of technology. So to engage in e-commerce, not only do you need to know how to use a smartphone, but you should be able to use platforms and build a website. So we're seeing a gap in terms of people being able to really use and embrace the technology that's available, but there are ways in which those can be tackled through private and public sector partnerships, policy interventions. And then I would say the second one is the low adoption of online payment methods. So in Sri Lanka, I think the main mode of payment when it comes to e-commerce is cash on delivery. And there's slow adoption of online payment methods, but I think with the pandemic we're seeing more people agreeing to do bank transfers and things like that. But if those pick up, we can see the e-commerce industry going a lot faster, but for now those are a couple of barriers.
Sure. You briefly mentioned in your earlier reply of how there's more opportunities for women, own businesses and entrepreneurs as well. Would you care to elaborate a little bit more on it, and how can that segment of the economy really grow to become a bigger part and really will see inclusivity and other factors playing a bigger role as well?
So e-commerce definitely has much lower barriers than other industries, and the main reason why we'll see it improve female labor force participation is because women can actually start businesses from the comfort of their own homes. And we're seeing this not only in other parts of the world, like for example Australia or Europe or even the United States, but we're also seeing it in Sri Lanka, where women who would normally, be a stay-at-home mom or, not engage in the formal labor force, they're coming into the formal labor force through e-commerce because it really enables them to work from home, but it also gives them the flexibility to work in their own time and at their own pace. So we're going to see e-commerce really coming at the forefront of improving female labor force participation in Sri Lanka for those reasons. And the other component of it is that community-led or based brands is a big aspect of e-commerce. Homegrown brands, community-based and led brands. And women are very interested in that aspect of it, particularly with the social media platforms. So we're going to see a lot more engagement on that front, which is very promising.
Thanks for that. And I think you work in the ESG space as well, and we've seen how it's become a very trendy topic to now actually becoming a reality. How is Sri Lanka's e-commerce space and sector really adapting to it, and what can we expect from businesses, brands, and the platforms going forward?
Yeah, ESG is definitely a hot topic, and the e-commerce industry, since it's in its relatively early stages, particularly in Sri Lanka, it's not considered a new industry in other parts of the world, but it's relatively new in Sri Lanka, and we have a unique opportunity to really develop and grow the industry based on ESG values. But for that to happen, I think the e-commerce industry will need to focus on three main areas, which is labor, logistics and packaging. And if the industry is to really adopt ESG, much more focus and attention needs to be paid to those three areas. So that is labor conditions within the supply chain, wastage from packaging, carbon emissions from logistics. But the e-commerce industry alone cannot really revolutionize those three areas and make it sort of compliant with ESG values, but we'll need to see those businesses and companies that are plugged into those three sectors also take an interest in ESG and also take an interest in bringing those values to their business models and their systems and processes. And we will see positive changes if all three areas and the e-commerce industry work together to create change.
Thanks so much, Anishka. I think the audience really got a flavor of Sri Lanka's e-commerce industry, where it is at, how it's supporting not only the big businesses but SMEs and women-owned businesses as well. How it's not only about the delivery side of it, there is labor, there is the whole logistics piece as well in it. And in particular, I think on the ESG angle as well, how that's becoming a bigger part of this emerging industry. And more importantly right now, given where Sri Lanka's economy is at, what role the e-commerce sector can really play. So thank you so much, Anishka, for joining with us. And for our viewers, stay tuned for future episodes like this, where we will look at interesting topics with eminent personalities to give you a quick insight and analysis on it. Thank you.